All right. Well, welcome everyone to the, what is it, May meeting of CARD. I'm going to share my screen and bring up the agenda. So again, we video all these meetings and post them to YouTube. I recommend for watching to turn on, it should be in the upper right portion of your screen, where there's kind of a hash thing where you can choose how many people you want to see. So gallery mode. And then when you're watching it, when it's shared like this, you'll see that there's a slider bar between your what it looks like. If I can, I can't. Never mind. I can't use that to do it because I'm sharing. Um, there's a slider bar between your screen and the people, and you can show more people or bigger screen. So that's how I do the recording on the second computer. So when we have people talking more, we show more people, and when the focus is on the screen, then I zoom in on the screen. So again, I'm Roger Rayle. I'm chair of CARD and chair of SAR Residents for Safe Water. And during these meetings, we go through the agenda, and we'll probably get through it pretty quick today because there's not a lot of updates. I have of my usual thing at the end that will go pretty quickly. So the first thing that we want to do is I'll turn it over to Beth, our secretary, to talk about approving the minutes from the last meeting, which is back in March, because we didn't have one in April.
That's right. Thank you, Roger. So yes, we are approving the March minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
I've reviewed them, so moved.
Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, I don't hear anybody. So the minutes from March are approved. Thank you. And I'll turn it over now to Jack Eaton, our executive director, to moderate the meeting. Thanks,
Thank
Jack.
you, Beth. Like Roger said, I think this meeting will move through the agenda pretty quickly, and clearly any participant who has nothing new to add on any agenda item can just say that, and we can move along. So first, we're going to turn to the EPA update. I noticed that Georgia's here, so why don't we ask her to speak first?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm sorry for not having my camera on. I'm pretty sure that I would get delayed quite a bit with my audio if I tried to do that. Not great Wi-Fi here at home. Just wanted to mention that this was obviously one of the first times that, not the first time, that's not the right word to say. We were anticipating this being the later estimation around this time this year for the NPL listing in accordance with some of the guidelines we got from EPA before. And because we're not really aware of any progressive movement in that direction from EPA, the Congresswoman has been very vocal about that in her conversations with the administration in its entirety, but then, of course, also with the new leadership at EPA Region 5, which, of course, has had quite a bit of turnover and doesn't look very similar to the folks that were there before. So that requires its own kind of education that the Congresswoman's been embarking on. Obviously, she speaks with the regional leadership about quite a few different issues, but has strongly advocated that the folks that are there pay special attention to this site, the progress that has been made on it, the timeline that was promised. And in addition to that, just trying to mark the importance of making progress on sites like this, try to get that message hammer home to the regional leadership. So I would say that that's most of the update we have right now. out of not seeing very much public information about progress being made towards a spring listing. I mean, it's very much so spring right now. And so, yep, we've just been working on that as best we can. Of course, information sharing is not at its best with the new administration. So, it's perhaps even more of an uphill battle than it had been before. So that is obviously not a very substantial or useful update per se, but that is where we are right now. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware.
Any questions or comments? So I hope, oh, go ahead, James.
So let me make sure that I'm clear. Are we just simply anticipating just delay, or are we saying that there's been some scoring criteria change? Did I hear that correctly?
They have not said anything about scoring criteria changes, nor have they said that the site will have a delayed listing, but it's spring right now. So, I think they were purposefully vague on, fall and spring, because that doesn't mean, April 19th or something like that. And it can
Sure.
be, more flexible than that. So I guess it's sort of, we haven't heard that there's going to be a delay in the listing. We also have not been giving a date that it will be listed. So that's, confusing for us. We've not been given any notification that scoring criteria has changed or that the administration won't respect what has been determined by previous administrations. Of course, some of that progress being made in the first Trump administration as well. So, the lack of clarity is concerning to us, and that's why the Congresswoman has been talking with the regional leadership about this quite a bit.
Appreciate that, Georgia. And as always, we're grateful for yours and certainly Congresswoman Dingell's efforts in this regard. So thank you. We are grateful as always.
Yes, I agree with James. You should convey our appreciation to her and tell her we understand how frustrating it must be at this point in time. Also, I note that the House is beginning budget discussions, and so we would like to be kept appraised of what they might do to the EPA budget, and especially the Superfund funding as we move forward through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, the name of the game right now is that there's, of course, a desire for major budget cuts and no desire to be specific about where that will come from, because there's, opposition from plenty of groups, agencies, other actors to say, well, we don't want it to come from this, we don't want it to come from that. So obviously we're finding it very difficult to get people to explain to us where exactly the money will be coming from. But as soon as that is more evident to us, of course, we will be forthcoming about that.
Yep. Thank you so much. Any other comments or questions of Georgia? So I don't think anybody is here from the EPA that I saw. Did anybody see an EPA representative? Okay. Dan Bicknell's not here, so we'll move on to the EGLE update. Is there anyone here from EGLE? Seeing no one, I think we'll probably cover some of these issues under Roger's update at the end of the meeting. So I'm going to move on from here. Excuse me. Is there anybody here from Washtenaw County? I thought I saw a couple people. Kristen?
Hey there, it's Kristen. I don't have any update. I know Jenny was giving a presentation, I think, but other than that, no update from us on anything legal or otherwise. Oh, Jenny, maybe you want to touch base. I think we're doing the, sorry, we do have an update. The residential sampling. I forget that it's May already, so we're doing that in June, which is coming up sooner than I would have expected. Same as before, kind of looking at the residential well sampling that we've done in the past, any of the detections, and then anything, I believe it's 500 feet from a previous detection.
Thank you.
Yep. So the first week of June is our sampling. We're scheduled to collect samples from 127 homes. There's like a handful, a couple of new ones farther to the north towards the Huron River. So kind of I'm gonna draw a blank on the name of the road. It's north of Robinwood and Cottontail up there. But so we're extending that way just a little bit. Otherwise, our sampling didn't expand. Woodley, thank you, Woodley. So those residents will be getting letters here. We ordered bottles today. They'll be getting letters in about a week, notifying them of that sampling. So I may or may not be on the quarterly meeting next month, but if I am not, I will give Kristen an update to provide, or make sure you're updated on everything.
Yeah, we'll have to do an email. I'm unable to make the next meeting as well.
Okay, so hopefully I can make it. I'll send everybody else out sampling. And then Roger had noted that I was requested by a realtors group to give a presentation on May 20th. Roger wanted like a sneak peek of it, which I have not created it yet because it's just a crazy busy time of year. But I was gonna let you all know. So their request was to find out more about the Plume because there's always new realtors and realtors coming from out of the area. And they want to know what to tell their residents. And then they were also concerned about PFAS, PFAs. And then I like to throw in time of sale because Washington County has a pretty nice time of sale program, but that is like a local regulation, not all that many. There's only a handful of jurisdictions across the state that have that. So I throw all of it together. So I basically give them a background on water sources. We start fairly basic. We keep everything pretty high level. Is it surface water? Is it a groundwater source? Then we go into the different type of contaminants that you might see, whether naturally occurring, biological, chemical, some are aesthetic, and some, the most harmful, like you can't see or taste. So we go into like all the basics. Then I give them an update on the PFAS contamination sites in Washtenaw County, the handful that we have, and give them a little background of the PFAs. We get a lot of resident phone calls about them, and thankfully we don't have widespread contamination in the groundwater here in Washtenaw County from those, like some of the other counties do. For dioxane, it's a lot to cover, right? And 40 years worth of things. So I basically just let them know like where we don't get into high level details. So we are low, however you want to say that. So keep it high level. They want to know what to tell their clients. So we go over where the plume is located, how you can be exposed, whether it's the area where you could have contaminated groundwater coming into your basement, or if it's from a drinking water well. We go over the Huron River source for the city of Ann Arbor. And I talk about where I focus primarily on Scioto Township and where the wells are that could be impacted. And then I move into our time of sale program. I'm sorry if you can hear my son. We move into the time of sale program where I let them know that their well, if they have one, has to be sampled as part of that program prior to property transfer to make sure it is safe. And dioxin is not included in that because it is a county-wide regulation, so it does not include the dioxin. And some residents choose to have it added on as part of like their due diligence period. Any questions?
Okay, so as you develop this, if you need any imaging that I have that you don't have on your mapping system, let me know, because I've given 2 or 3 talks over the decades to different realtor groups, and maybe I should share with you what I presented back then and see if it's consistent with what you're planning.
Sure. Yeah, if you want to share, that would be great. Very sorry.
And
I don't know if you can hear him. But I do try to keep it pretty basic. We don't tend to get into, histories or anything. They just kind of want to know what to tell them now and what areas to be aware of. And then I give them my contact information should they have additional questions or their clients have questions.
Are you going to share a map that shows where the sampling is?
Yeah, I show that map that the county created showing where we've tested and had detections because we don't have an updated Plume map that shows the new detections to the north.
I'm hoping we'll have that data. I keep thinking that Chris will have that for me so I can update the my Google Earth mashups, but I don't know if we're going to have that in time.
Yeah, I'm not expecting anything anytime soon, unfortunately, but that would be awesome. Beth, you ever hit up?
Thank you. Well, since you might be jumping off after this, since you've got the kiddos and stuff, but what you just described is exactly what I was going to bring up under the comprehensive land use plan for Ann Arbor, how there's not one mention of dioxane at all or contamination. The word contaminant is not anywhere in it. And like, it's just something simple should at least be in there, like where the plume is located, how you can be exposed, where our water intake is, and we're hoping the plume doesn't make it there kind of thing. But I don't know, do you ever have input like for the county's land use plan and stuff like that? Or maybe if I could see what you've got, I don't know. I don't even live in Ann Arbor anymore. I was hoping someone in Ann Arbor would take this on too, but it just
I
seemed
can look into it further. I'm not familiar with the plan so I can definitely look into it further.
Well, I think
Okay,
what would be
thank
helpful if you could share with me, and I'll share with the card board, what you plan on presenting, and then if we have any inputs where we think you can do more of this and less of that, we can weigh in.
I will share.
I had some former neighbors reach out to me and say, we know you're involved in CARD, and they were looking at the draft land use plan that's coming out. And they
Okay.
said, how come the dioxane's not even mentioned in it? And I thought, well, I don't know. And I'm not going to delve into it either, but I thought I'd bring it up at this meeting, and thank you.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Thanks.
James,
James?
you have a question?
Actually, I was following up to Beth, but Beth, you want to present that later? I can wait. It's related to the land use plan.
Okay. I would note that the land use plan is going to eliminate our natural features plan entirely and just mention the need to balance natural features and urban density, because it's the claim of the consultant that pretty much all of our natural features in town are now publicly owned in parks and nature areas. So
Oh, I can't believe there's so many people that worked so hard on that new natural features plan, updating it the last decade. But
we got out
wow.
of town on time. So already, James.
I guess I will weigh in since we're talking about it extensively. Just for people on this call who do have the flexibility in their time, the Planning Commission is has been holding charrettes at various branches of public libraries in Ann Arbor. The next one is tomorrow afternoon between 3 and 7. It's where the public is presented with a plan. And members of the public are allowed to provide input and comment in terms of what the plan is. And what it really is as what Beth mentioned, it is the blueprint of what the land use plan is going to be. Major discussion has been around density, but now is the time to weigh in with respect to other items of the plan. So maybe I would suggest to the CARD executive committee that maybe prepare a statement to the Planning Commission related to they may want to make some mention or reference in the land use plan, the plan document regarding the Gelman Plume, some language to that effect. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
Well, and that just like Jenny said, where it's located, how you can be exposed, where the water intake is, like simple, you would think, and Aaron might know more too, but you would think if you're, I mean, Roger did a quick run through of with AI. There was not one word contamination. There was, what else, Roger? There was nothing about clean water, even there was nothing in the plan about water. And you'd think that that would be a pretty important,
Yeah,
but I haven't read it.
I did a keyword search and summarized it.
So I'm not sure there's a mention of any of those words in the current land use plan either.
I think it's a background document, kind of history. I mean, as I mentioned, the land use plan is the guide to zoning, but would be useful perhaps to have some language in there. But again, just to reiterate, tomorrow from 3 to 7, for anyone interested, there is a charrette. So that'd be an opportunity for people so inclined.
So I agree. Go ahead, Jenny.
So sorry to switch topics. Back. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that we have received an application to put in geothermal at Slauson Middle School. From the Ann Arbor Public Schools are putting geothermal in all of their school buildings. So we finally received the application. We're anticipating it for Slauson. They want on like 130 borings to 800 feet deep. So we're going to work with EGLE and them to review that proposal. So the closed loop geothermal are not permitted. They're not prohibited in the prohibition zone. However, there's obviously concerns in that area because we know there is dioxin in the groundwater, and we're also worried about flowing well conditions. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that we'll be working with them on that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Aaron. Aaron,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
I can.
So I would add, so staff is also doing our reviews of the land use comprehensive plan, and I'd be interested what specific items about dioxin you'd like to see in the plan. I mean, I'm guessing it's not in there because the city does not have regulatory oversight of, technically does not have regulatory oversight over Gelman and development in the city. But if there is something specific to development and Gelman, definitely let me know. I can mention that too, that it is worth noting in the plan, just that it's there. Because that we do come up against that when we have to dewater or something in an area with shallow groundwater. I would also add on the natural features. So I'm also the liaison to the Environmental Commission at the city. And I just wanted to say, so it is replacing the natural features master plan, but we aren't, from what I understand, we aren't recommending any changes to natural features protection. So all of the, things that we have in code that came from the previous natural features master plan will continue. So, the wetlands, the steep slopes, all of those natural features protections will continue. I know the Planning Commission has also said that it needs to be stated specifically that we aren't recommending any of those be weakened or changed. But if you do have specific things that you'd like to see as far as natural features protections being strengthened, I would definitely like to hear that. So let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rita.
So, Aaron, first I'll just respond to you, and then I want to go back to Slauson. Aaron, I think it's just really important that the 1,4-dioxane shallow groundwater be mentioned and be part of the planning process to take into account. If they want to build super tall buildings, they're going to need to have some pretty good foundations. And you mentioned the dewatering, but the whole concept is that you don't want people living in damp and wet basements. We don't want underground units, which often are the ones that are set aside for low income. We don't want those units to be particularly vulnerable for flooding and dampness, especially once we get to the West Park area and beyond. I think it needs to be mentioned. The plume should be mentioned. So that's my 2 cents on it. And you asked for some specifics of what we'd like, and I vote for that. In terms of Slauson, the other thing I think that should be mentioned, not only is there, they've been detecting 1,4-dioxane every year in recent years in the pond in West Park, not very far from there. The field is low lying. It really depends where they're going to put that geothermal drilling well, and remind them that when they drilled in West Park, they had a geyser. They actually had a geyser. I don't know how many feet it went up, but there's a lot of artesian pressure on the near surface water there, and it could be a real mess. So my 2 cents. Thanks very much.
Go
We
ahead,
also
Vince.
share those concerns, sorry, very much so.
Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I do think that unfortunately we
I don't hear you.
You're mute, Vince.
Vince said he's been having some trouble with his audio, and he didn't come across. I heard him speak because he's.
I only
You
heard
know.
part of it. Its volume was low.
It's because it came through my mic, and I'm sitting
Oh, you
25
said
feet
next to
from
him?
him.
Okay, well, then you're gonna have to move over to where Rita is.
Okay, tell you what, I'll walk over and let Vinny say his piece. How's that? Okay, go say your piece. Just say it. Don't be picked up.
it'll get picked up.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay, so yeah, West Park and Slauson Middle School, I think, are very in a situation that's not great, and we need to make sure we're dealing with the potential exposures that could happen. Like Rita said, there is artesianing happening, and when they drilled for some test wells, I believe, they had to stop because they had so much water geysering up. So that's something they're gonna have to deal with, and we don't want 1,4-dioxane water spilling all over the place because they can't control it. So something we really have to be careful with. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'm going to move on. Is there anyone here from the Ann Arbor Township? I don't see anybody. Kathy, do you have anything to report for Scioto Township?
I can report on a recent PFAS presentation that EGLE and MPART gave to the Scioto Township Board. It was done by Zoom, and the public was entitled to be there and ask questions, which they did. So I think I reported to this group a while ago that PFAS had been discovered on 253 Dino Drive. And during a routine baseline environmental assessment, because the property was being sold, the building had been built in 1987 and had been occupied by MTI, a subsidiary of Gelman. They produced textile filters at the site, and the assumption is that the contamination occurred from that activity, although it hasn't been conclusively established that it did come from that. So they presented their overall PFAS monitoring program, background information on PFAS, modes of contamination, how people can ingest PFAS and be exposed to it. There will be some additional testing, and we're going to have periodic updates from MPART. 2 surface water samples were taken very recently. We should have the results within the next 2 weeks or so. There was discussion about determination of liability, and they're saying that certain obligations will occur if they can determine conclusively that this manufacturer was the liable party. I reminded them that liability has never been conclusively established for the Gelman dioxane plume. So it was an interesting discussion, presentation. MPART did an excellent job. Apparently they go all around the state and give these presentations.
Yeah. I attended that Zoom, and Kathy, is the video going to be hosted by SIO because it was done via SIOs, or is it going to be, is the video available someplace where we can post it and put it in the
I believe so. I believe it's posted now.
Okay, so it will be through the SIO site that I can find it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it should be. Let me know if you can't find it. I'll find
Okay.
it.
And I've done, I took all of the information, and there's like 171 files that were involved, counting all the baseline environmental analysis from different times. There was one done back in 2007 that was pretty interesting, you know, because that was apparently after Gelman had quit doing their thing. And of course, the parcel itself, there's like 3 buildings involved, and the original parcel had 3 buildings on it, and it's since been split into, I don't know, 10 different parcels, so they can identify each building and then some of the tenants inside each building. But so this is where it is. It's right here, and we have some aerial photographs that show that, you know, this got built up over the years as the Jackson Road got expanded and the water and sewer got extended out there. The real question that we have is with the original plan had called for well and septic. Let's see, it should be one of these levels. So here's a very detailed drawing from back in 86, I think, 85. And they're going to be a septic field here and a drain field here and maybe expanded drain field here. This building wasn't going to have sewer. It's going to be routed over and hooked up to this main building and it's just south of this is where they found PFAS in the soils and in a test well, and even in the well that was actually drilled at a different location. This is where it was going to be originally, and the well actually ended up being down here. So we have some of that information, but what we don't have is whether these septic fields actually got built, or whether they used a temporary septic. Kristen mentioned that apparently for building a building, you can bring in temporary, I guess it'd be like a giant porta potty type system or something. But before Gelman started manufacturing, had their assembly line set up for this building. We don't know the timeline of that. We don't know how long it took to build the building and how long it took to start to build in the equipment and start using the testing and see how to make this stuff and what happened to the disposal of any of the test fluids that happened from that. So there's still a lot we don't know. But one of the things we did find out, and one of the things I did to enhance was to take a look at where the creek sheds are. for surface water runoff. And it turns out that Honey Creek here is a little bit closer, maybe a third of a mile, than it is to Mill Creek, which is a mile away up in this direction. But of course, once it gets in the groundwater doesn't necessarily flow in the same manner as surface runoff. So we can go back to our Gelman data, which we happen to have a nice view here from Larry Limke based on a previous study that was done back in 1980 that shows the general groundwater flows in the area. And it just happened that Larry's arrow runs about where Dino Drive is. And so rather than EGLE's assumption that the flow is to the south or southeast, that may be true for surface water to get to Honey Creek here. But the groundwater is going to go towards the river. And there are a lot of township properties to the north and even to the south. But here's the wells that are in Scioto Township and Ann Arbor Township. Then, it could hit on this side of the river. So if there is PFAS here or something else, these properties here should be monitored and carefully, just like the state is monitoring here for the runoff to the north from Gelman. So this is new stuff that I just created this image, just overlaid this image and created a slide for it today. So you're seeing the latest and hottest information we have on this. This is an ongoing issue. We need to send this to the EGLE people that are involved and the Impart people that are involved and make sure they have all the same information that we have. So that's about all I have to say on that, and I'll entertain any questions after everybody has their say. So
Right, go ahead, Vince.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. I just want to remind people that Gelman on its original site was dumping quite a bit of 1,4-dioxane at that site. And we have eyewitness people who are actually doing the dumping.
yeah, that's at the original site, not you.
Yeah.
This
Okay,
site.
but,
You gotta,
okay, I know. I'm just trying to
make
make
sure
a
you
point.
make sure you know that we don't know if they did at this site. The same people
Okay.
were involved.
Well, let me make a
So it
comment.
might be a
Can
question to
I
be
make a
asked.
comment, Roger?
But be careful how you word it.
All right. Well, wait a minute. You give me a chance, will you? So if they were doing it at the main plant, I have to wonder if they weren't doing it on the Dino site.
Yep.
And I think there is some probably good evidence of that, and it would be worth looking into. There's a lot of dumping going on at the main site. We know that. We know that from individuals who actually are doing the work. And one of the comments was, yeah, we knew it was a bad day when we saw 50 barrels set up to go be dumped in the creek or dumped in the grassy area or the marshy area. And they were told not to be seen doing it. So I have to wonder if Dino site had the same examples going on with the dumping. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So these properties on Dino Drive, was Gelman the responsible party? Did they originally own these facilities, the buildings at these sites?
No, they leased.
Pardon, they leased?
Yeah, unless there's some backdoor arrangement, but it was a different owner.
Okay, so we're not sure who's the responsible party here.
Well, Gelman certainly is the one that they're looking at because they had use of PFAS in their manufacturing.
Okay. All right. So this is an issue now of PFAS in addition to 1.4 dioxane.
We don't know if there's
Gelman,
dioxane at this site.
but PFAS is a possibility, and Gelman may be a responsible party in terms of PFAS contamination at this site, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and again, as was pointed out, since they haven't, after 20, 30 years, they haven't taken responsible for dioxin at their major dioxin site, how to get them to take responsibility for whatever level of PFAS there is at this minor site. It might be there could be some pushback.
Interesting. All right. Thanks for this. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jenny.
I just want to clarify that the note that says no sewer is in the 75-foot isolation, that the well has to be isolated from the sanitary sewer. So that's what that note denotes. It's not that the building doesn't have sanitary sewer. It's that the well needed to be located at least 75 feet away from the sanitary sewer.
Oh, you're talking about the note on this.
Yeah, the building that said no sewer. It was just indicating that there's an isolation that the sewer can't be located in
Right.
relative to the well.
Yeah, there's a couple different versions of the notes, different time periods, and I tried to put those together in some fashion too. And you're right, there was some notes about where the original well was going to be, and you couldn't have a sewer within that 75 feet. But where they actually put the well was far enough away that those markings on the original drawing are null and void. That mean it's far away enough. But thanks for pointing that out. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I had a question that's unrelated to what I said, but in your earlier discussions about City of Ann Arbor master plan, those of you who are from Ann Arbor, does the city have a redundancy plan for their water supply if there's like a major contamination in the Huron River? What is their plan if they had
Detroit
to
water.
Yeah,
Is it
For specifically dioxane?
no,
or
I'm not
anything?
thinking just dioxane. I'm thinking contamination. If there was a huge contamination event, what's the plan for redundancy in the system? Is it Detroit Water?
Pretty much. They actually looked into that.
I know they did.
2
I
years
know they
ago
did.
and decided not to go with that because of the,
Right.
and Rita sat on and gave testimony or discussion to the city council, and they decided
If there's a plan.
they
Yeah.
decided not to use it, but that is still,
Why
an
don't we
option
let,
for them.
why don't we let Aaron respond to this question first?
I won't be able to speak to this. I know we do have an emergency response plan. I won't be able to speak to the details of what that is. I know some of you worked on the potential for, was it, I'm going to forget the pollutant, hexavalent chromium. There was the potential for that to come down the river, and there was the potential to contaminate the water treatment plant. But yeah, I can't speak to the specifics at this time. I apologize.
Was that from Tribar?
Correct. Yes.
That was mentioned during the PFAS presentation.
So I think the short answer to your question, though, is Ann Arbor doesn't have a redundancy plan that could be implemented with any immediacy. They do have a lot of safeguards against allowing pollution from the river to enter our drinking water source, but it may in fact cause them to go without supplying water for a short period of time if there was some overwhelming event. And if that occurred, then they may in fact go to their plan B, which is to try to hook up to Detroit water, which would take considerable infrastructure work, and it wouldn't be just weeks of work. It would be quite an elaborate sort of thing. So for example, if dioxin were to enter our water in sufficient quantities to threaten our water source, you can treat for that. I'm not sure that you can treat for PFAS, or
They filter it.
you can. Okay. And the pollutant that Aaron just mentioned, I'm not sure if there's a ready treatment for that. But we really do have good people at our water treatment plant who are always monitoring those things and are always looking at state-of-the-art responses to potential dangers. So I have some confidence in that. But if it were a long-term problem coming down the river, I'm not sure that we could respond very quickly. Beth, you had your hand up.
No, just back to the master plan, they don't call it that anymore, but it's not just development only. That's why I think the point of my old neighborhood was, are they going to even consider mentioning that, we might have to put a bunch of Scioto Township residents because of the dioxin onto the city water, and then, or we might, I don't know, development in general, but also our natural features and
Yep.
maybe if there's such a bad contamination as this, but I don't know.
I have a quick question for Aaron. Do you know how much water is stored in all the water towers?
I don't.
I'm trying to guess if that's anywhere near a day's supply. Could you
Don't know either.
research that? See, is there, I don't think there's any hills around. I don't think there's any in-ground water tanks that we can draw from, but of course, we can draw from Steer Farms where we get, what, 15-20% of the water. And I suppose they could up that temporarily, although the water treatment changes once you change how much river water versus groundwater. And I don't know what the capacity of the pipes that are going to Steer Farms, and well, I guess that's probably part of the reason they would keep the Northwest supply well available in an emergency, that provides up to 5% before it was contaminated with Gelman's dioxide. So in terms of capacity, if we can't use the river water, there are some immediate backup, but not the 13, 14 million gallons a day kind of thing.
Go ahead, Vince.
Oh yeah, the steer farm, but the other thing with that is it makes it much easier to create water that has, they may put things in to soften it. But steer farms, and it's also warmer, so it makes it easier to mix in the chemicals that they need. So it's important in that regard too. It'd be much more difficult if steer farms wasn't working.
That's right.
And the argument, that there's Dan River's got a lot of water is not, some people talk about, we have unlimited water, but not true. That's why they started to look at the Great Lakes Water Authority as another source. But it's very expensive, not the greatest water in the world, according to people who looked into it. And so, we don't have huge amounts of water just to allow people to come in and use it. Now, the city does have a requirement to allow connections to the townships because the federal government helped build the treatment plant, and the agreement was that outlying areas would get some of that water where needed. So that's still still valid, I think. But there is still an issue of, having enough water to cover everybody's needs. And I think, all these buildings that they're proposing, I think there's going to be a real issue with, do we really have enough water to supply all those condos that could go in and all these tall buildings. And I spoke at some of the meetings about that, and I think a lot of people don't realize that we're not flush with a lot of water, to use a phrase. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Kathy, I do have a question too. There's a development immediately to the east of the Dino Drive site. That's going to be on city water, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Did you have anything else to add?
No, that's
All
it.
right. Um, let's move on to the city of Ann Arbor. Aaron, do you have anything more to say?
Um, I so I was trying to quickly find. I would recommend if folks haven't looked at it, there's the water treatment plant has a um, facility plan from 2023, and I know it talks about diversifying sources, so I would recommend folks could check that out and see if there's any details in there about where we're at with that investigation to diversify. Um, I also gave a presentation to a realtor group this morning. I guess it's that season. On the Gelman Plume. There were a lot of questions, I would say, about residential well testing, and I'm going to follow up with Jenny at some point on getting those questions answered. But yeah, I think it went well. People were engaged and had lots of questions, so that was good. I
Can you share
highlighted.
that? Excuse me, can you share that with card
Yeah, sure. I can
presentation?
email that to you. Yeah,
And maybe Jenny would like to see it too. So.
sure. And I shared I updated the city's website related to dioxane. We had some pretty outdated web pages that I just completely removed. And then I tried to consolidate all of the dioxane Gelman stuff into like one kind of FAQ page that hopefully makes it easier for folks to go and check out. And there's links to like the water treatment plant has a dioxane like superset page. You can go look at our water quality results from our water quality testing in Barton Pond and our treated water source. And then I have links to our partners, so the county, the Huron River Watershed, and the Scioto Residents for Safe Drinking Water.
Is this the new page you're talking about?
Yep. So there's a lot of you've probably seen some of this information previously, but it's all in one place now.
Oh,
And
cool.
there's a couple of new questions with just additional information.
And
so
the link
that
we have to it didn't break, so I appreciate that.
hopefully that's getting fixed a little more. We did just update like the back end of all of our website stuff. So I think that's getting fixed for the most part.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Yep, that's all my updates.
So, Aaron, did you get the impression from the realtor group that they have some legal obligation to disclose the presence of the plume beneath a property that's for sale?
I did not get any questions about that. They did have questions around in Scioto Township about if the wells were required to be tested for dioxane, and Jenny did answer that for me. But nothing within the city
Okay.
around, if their address was, on top of the plume. I did share like the EGLE tool where folks can go to it and like plug in their address to see where it is. So whether they should share that with their clients, I don't know. But yeah, they didn't mention anything. I have any questions about legal obligations to mention.
Well, the
All right.
prohibition zone is the key thing. If it's in the prohibition zone, they have to disclose that.
All righty. Thanks again, Aaron. I see no questions or hands or comments or anything, so we're going to move on. Rita, do you have anything to say about the Yale Superfund research program?
I have not heard anything. I think they're just, I think they've been being cut. The last I heard, the administrator told me she was looking for a job.
Yeah.
The person who is like the main staff person who runs the center. She said she thought that they were losing all their funding, but I don't know. I haven't got. I also haven't heard anything. There's usually an annual meeting where they have the external advisors come to Yale and review the progress and make recommendations. We haven't heard anything about that. So it's really very discouraging, in terms of research, and a lot of funds have been cut. So I guess I can ask. I'll ask and report back at the next meeting. How's that?
Well, it's not surprising because I think everybody is
No.
just under a cloud of uncertainty because we don't know what this next budget might look like, and it probably won't be
Oh,
favorable to science, so.
I wouldn't say it's a cloud of uncertainty. I would say it's more like doom.
Yes, right.
People are very, very gloomy.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, it's something to distract us all until the big recession arrives, I suppose. So
Well, it's going to take years to rebuild what's been
Oh,
gutted.
awful. Awful.
um, so James, is there anything to say about the Allen Creek MS4 process?
Not this time. I'll have more in June.
Yep. Roger, do you want to cover Earth Day now or in your
I didn't have anything to say in my update, so I could show a picture of what our booth looked like, but it looks like all the other years of booths.
Yep.
We had a
I
decent
just wanted,
turnout.
I added it so we could thank you guys for doing it, whoever was there with you,
Oh.
Roger.
Yeah, we had Vince and Rita and
Vince
Jack
and-
and
Oh,
a number of visitors. It was a not real warm day, but it was sunny, and there were a lot of people out. But I wouldn't say it was it was on the lower side of turnout, just because it was. And then when we packed up, um, there was a discrepancy about when it was over. As you know, the one of the emails I had said it was over at 4, and some of the other people on our row were packing up by 4 o'clock, and we went to try to get back up the hill to pick up stuff. They wouldn't let us back up. He said, "No, this isn't over till 4:30." So there's a little snafu there that we have to be aware of for future ones. Anyway,
On the bright side, none of us were jailed, so it was okay.
yeah, almost. I mean, Beth said to turn around. You would get
That's
a
only because Roger got out of Dodge quickly.
Yes,
Well,
indeed.
I rolled down my window and said, "I have a family Zoom meeting with grandchildren scheduled this time, so I'm going to go get my stuff." Anyway, that's how that went. But that happens.
Yes.
Well, thanks, Roger, for all your effort on
Well,
it, getting it
Thanks for
together.
organizing.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks everybody. I mean, and it's always good to get out and let people know that this is still an issue, and it requires a community to help solve it.
Indeed. Okay, moving on. July 1, do we want to hold or cancel that meeting?
I think that should be June. Or
No,
wait,
no,
it's
you
June is
think
a
they had
quarter.
another month. I see. Okay, never mind.
we want to do June. I'm looking ahead 2 months just because the 4th of July's,
Right, that week.
that Friday, or
Right.
I don't know what you guys think.
She's trying to wind down her activities as secretary and stuff.
Well, that's a good thing because it helps not to have this every month.
Yeah.
When there's not a lot going on, because there's a lot of people's time involved.
Yep.
And we do need to definitely do the quarterly meeting next month. July, I would say there probably won't be too much going on.
But
Just
a lot can intervene in between that time, though. I think we should maybe review in June.
So why don't we ponder it between now and June and take a vote at the June meeting?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank
There
you.
might be some new stuff, but the way things are going, it's moving less slowly than the dioxane. So
Yes. Pardon me. So are there any other issues that executive board members want to raise at this point in time? Seeing no hands, I'm going to turn it over to the chair.
and I will bring up.
Well, right, while you're doing that, Roger, while you're bringing it up, let me just say that I did talk to Eleanor Epperson. I don't think she's on the call right now. And, she's been trying to get these articles out that she's worked on about the Gelman Plume and about CARD's involvement and the community's engaged involvement with the Plume. I did talk with her this week. She was hopeful that her editor would approve the final issuance of the articles. So it's been dragging, but now I think, and of course, NPR is on the is a target now for funding. So let's keep our fingers crossed. I heard her give a great report on the Michigan radio just yesterday, so she's still there. So I guess we'll be hopeful. That's all I wanted. Draja, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's good to hear that she's still sticking with it. Vince, your hand's up.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I just want to make a comment about the near surface groundwater contamination in West Park and near Slauson Middle School. I think I missed maybe the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if this was covered, but I think, the city and the EPA need to do something to try and detect what's going on in those areas. The city of Ann Arbor had tests way up the hill, which we didn't recommend, and they went ahead and did it anyway for whatever reason. I'm not sure. But if you go down where the pond is and that area, there's definitely 1,4-dioxane there. It was at 50 part per billion a couple of years ago. Now it's come down a little bit. And the pond itself has 1,4-dioxane in it. So I think we need to make sure we get on top of that and not keep making errors on the tests that we do and wasting our money. And the CARD group should be discussed, what we think is important and what we would recommend. I don't see that happening. I don't think the mayor's never come to a CARD meeting. Most of the council never comes to the CARD meeting. I don't even know if they ever come. So anyway, hopefully we can see some changes in that. So thanks.
Alrighty.
All right. Well, I'll go through my chair update. It'll be pretty quick. There's two major parts to it. So this is where I need to make the slide bigger and the people talking smaller. Why did I show up? There we go. Okay. All right. So first segment is about the marsh area feasibility study that came out in January. And I've covered some of this before, but I want to reiterate it, that it was a very, it was pretty detailed study. And we get some revelations that there's about 96,000 parts per billion, 2 or 3 feet deep in the soil still at the site. And in water, it's even up to 17,000. And they talked about how much dioxin they estimated was left in the marsh area of 416 to 573 pounds. How does that compare? Well, it's in this area here in different levels. I'll go back to 1989. Excuse me. Where in the mass balance that Gelman did in their treatment costs, they said in the marsh area there was about 1,800 pounds of dioxin. So after all these years, in between there, they removed about 600 pounds, they thought, from the marsh area pilot tests back in 94, 95. So if that's true, that there's 400 to 573 pounds still in the marsh area, there's 645 to 800 pounds that are unaccounted for, that it just go away on its own, or did some of it filter down through the quote apertures to the lower aquifers? And these apertures are these ones with the A symbol here. And this is what it was listed as for years in their marshy area maps. And it turns out some of these were questionable because they were duplicates. And this study had enough detail that we actually able to correct these and get the correct names on these apertures. And these are basically just holes drilled down certain depths so they could do some sampling, I guess. Whether it's ongoing sampling or not, we don't know. These were done way early, like in 95. So from that point on, there could have been dioxin leaking down to the deeper layers. And here's where some of the layers are depicted over the years. This is from a 94 drawing that shows the peat and the marl and the sand and gravel and the diamecton and then the sand area. These apertures only go down certain depths here. There's only 3 of the apertures showing here in this cross section of the 14 that are there. So some of this dioxin could be down deeper than it was at the surface. Remember, in the marsh areas where they'd overflowed from pond 2 and the dioxin kind of just spread out to the marsh area. Here's another depiction of the marsh area. So pond 2 was one of their online treatment ponds. So the dioxin would go down straight through pond 2, and at one point they even dug out the bottom of pond 2 to help it drain into the ground better. But when the pond was full, it ran off into the marshy area. And of course, at that time, the marsh area was not Gelman property. That was offsite. And so they scrambled to put a couple monitoring wells down and a couple purge wells and all these apertures. You can think of all these layers here with holes through it. We don't have a good idea of how much of that dioxin, 800 some pounds of it, made it down to the real aquifer, usable aquifers, C3. So that's one of the questions that I wanted to make clear to everybody through this little segment here. We now know about how much dioxin is still left. We know how much was estimated originally. We don't know what happened to these 800 to 900 pounds of dioxin and where it ended up. So that's the first segment. Any questions on that before I do the next segment? Because the next segment's pretty new stuff here. Oh, I'm sorry. There's more on the marsh area. I guess I didn't read my notes well. So here's some later. This is from the marsh area study that has more details on all these layers. It does not show all of the apertures on these cross sections. So you can kind of visualize that they're going to be down in this area here. There are some soil borings during this January period that they drilled down 40, 50 feet. And they, to have these and have readings here. And there's a couple places where they didn't. And this happens to be one, the EB, this is on the south, so I guess it would be this one right here that didn't go that deep. So we don't know how much of the dioxin made it down to this area. And then if you go west to east on this cross section, we have similar unmonitored areas from 883 feet down to 808 feet, something like that. 68, I guess it is. So there's a couple areas where, again, they could have drilled deeper and they could have sampled, but we just don't have samples here. And maybe it's because they figured most of the concentration is going to be in the center and it's not going to run off to the side. So anyway, so some unknowns about how much of the dioxin filtered down through these apertures to lower aquifers. But at least we have some more detailed information about what's left in each of the layers. And as we get that data and plot it, this again only goes up through 2021 data because we don't have the latest data through 2024. But this is all the marshy wells, anything that's in the marshy area, plotted over time on a log scale. So we have some really high concentrations here, around 880,000 parts per billion. And you can see some of these are going down, but then they kind of plateau out above the groundwater surface water interface standard and even above 2,000 parts per billion in some places. But if we add in these two anomalies, these two readings with really high readings, they're actually higher than what was sampled in any of the monitoring wells, ongoing monitoring wells in the marsh area. This 95, almost 96,000 parts per billion at SB 025, and nearby in the groundwater, deeper elevation, 17,000 per billion. This is where they would plot much higher than what is showing by the monitoring wells. So these actual areas here might be pretty small, but they still should be sampled. They still should be monitored. There may be other ones. They didn't sample the whole marsh area. They just did it in certain areas. But these in particular are a problem because it's really high concentrations, and they're still there. And I think that's the end of my marshy area thing. So I see there's already a hand up. James?
Yeah, Roger, let me just ask a quick question, a stupid one. Is this Gelman data that was missing that we just acquired, or is this EGLE data?
This is Gelman's new analysis through a contractor.
Okay.
And there's a number of sample points that you can read from their the document. It's a very long document, very detailed.
Sure.
These are their ongoing sampling, monthly sampling or bi-monthly sampling, whatever. These
Well,
dots.
considering that it's their data and like everything else is discoverable, to what degree do we trust the data?
Well, I think trust the data because they use consultants to do the data, and the consultants have a reputation.
Okay.
What I question is, will these areas with high concentrations be monitored more closely? Or maybe it's because these were done such fine, I think every foot or so of aquifer. And so there may be some little pockets that are really high, but we don't know if those pockets extend out laterally at different levels. If somebody was going to do a further study, these would be two good places to start and expand out and watch over time because these are really high concentrations, much higher than what the data shows.
Interesting. Thanks, Roger.
Any other questions? All right, so the next slide, so just with the new data of the water connections plan, this is part of the fourth CJ negotiations, that these areas were targeted as potentially getting city water, even though not all of these areas, or even just a piece of one of them, has had a detection to date. And if we zoom in on that, you can see it better. So we got Kelvin Street, which is this little pocket of, and this little triangle here between 14 Miller Road and Maple Road. There's a few homes, maybe a half dozen homes or so in here. There's homes on Elizabeth Drive, which is probably 10 or 12 homes in here, of which 4 or 5 have had ongoing dioxane readings. There's a Wagner Road, this little pocket down here, the corner of Liberty and South Wagner, where there's just 2 or 3 homes in here. And next door over at Lakeview Street that goes up from Miller, or up from Liberty. These homes are still on wells, and so far they haven't been hit, even though there's been hits just to the west. So these are the areas that are covered under this water hookup contingency plans. And I don't know if Aaron, if you've been involved with this, is this part of the thing that would have reached you yet? You still there, Aaron? She might have kiddo issues to deal with. Anyway, so that's basically my update. Any questions about the major point in this, of course, is we have hits here. We have like 2 or 3 dozen hits in Scioto Township. Where's the contingency plan for hooking up these people to city water? And that would include this hit here and over here on just to the west too. These hits that were ongoing. Any issues people want to discuss here?
Well,
You're there.
I can tell you that it's been discussed. And part of the reason I posed that question earlier about the city of Ann Arbor is that we're evaluating a potential request in the Baker Road area for, I think you might have some familiarity with it, a landowner who owns 45 acres has requested to be annexed into the city of Dexter. And this is just evolving. We're working through the situation, trying to analyze it. But one of the things he wants to do is install a community well on his property to service Dexter. And extensive studies have been done. Apparently, the aquifer has the capacity to supply this well. We don't know how much water it might supply. So one of the issues for us in SCIO is evaluating, is this water a potential resource currently in SCIO? And how do we want to respond to this situation? We haven't responded yet. Apparently, they want this Dexter's water source is exclusively community wells, and they want this well to supplement their current existing wells. But this would be the largest well of all their wells currently. They have 4 right now. The capacity of this well would be greater than the capacity of any of their other wells. So it poses a lot of questions. We're just starting to study it.
Yeah. Yeah, and is it close
But-
enough to pollution sources that are they considering if they're drawing that much water, are they going to draw in some pollution that wouldn't be there otherwise? Chelsea had
And
this issue,
could this use of this water impact other wells in the area?
Yeah. Yeah, like what is it, which township was it that the gravel pit was affecting people nearby?
Yeah.
Chelsea had a problem a number of years ago now. Excuse me, I still have this terrible cough. Where they stopped expanding. They couldn't have any more water hookups because they didn't have enough capacity in their water system.
Yeah, that's
You remember that?
interesting. So
And
Dexter had just submitted a draft master plan, and in this master plan, they have a section about neighboring communities. You know, Sayo is a neighboring community, and they talk about their plans for expansion, but there's no map. They don't have the capacity to serve 45 new homes, as I understand it, and to serve the Dexter City residents that currently have water and the developments that have already been approved within the city limits of Dexter. So they appear to want to expand, which is very interesting to me. So
yeah,
this is still evolving, as I say.
I'm not sure. Dexter must be bigger than Chelsea, right?
I don't know, but I don't think so.
Um,
The city of Dexter is pretty small.
well, here's Dexter, and here's Chelsea. So I'm not sure. I don't have the city boundaries showing here, but
Yeah.
They're pretty similar
yeah.
size.
Check the chat.
But I will tell you that the amount of extra water that Chelsea needed when they were running out. Well, actually, I think the total amount was of what they used. It was actually what Gelman was throwing away from their partially treated, dioxane treatment.
What is Chelsea's current source of water?
It's wells.
Okay.
And this new well was found at a nearby developer's property. I happen to know him. He lived in Barton Hills. And that saved the day for Chelsea, and they could start having more buildings built and more water hookups. Then there's the issue of once you add water, you're going to have to add sewer capacity, and that's always an issue. If you're expanding water, you have to expand sewer because you don't want the imbalance to do funny things. So I guess what we should do, these issues starting to come up, is we should have better information of where the wells are, where the well's going to be, what's the capacity. Is Scioto Township going to cease to exist as it gets absorbed by the cities around it? What does that mean for all the homeowners that are here that are, a lot of them are retired and on fixed incomes? And they're already going to be paying more because of tariffs and things like that. So I don't know. This opens up a whole can of worms, but then again, we need the water. We're about 80%, they're about 2/3 water, each of us, and we have to have that. James.
Yeah, this is a question for Kathleen. So the developer for that parcel with 45 units, are they requesting annexation to the city of Dexter?
Say that again.
Is the developer requesting annexation to this, requesting that Dexter annex the property into the
Yes.
city? Okay,
Yes, a
okay.
landowner can do that.
The township has to agree to it, I assume.
Ideally, it should be an amicable agreement, such as a 425 agreement. But
Mm-hmm.
those discussions have not occurred, and we're currently weighing that option too.
Sure. Appreciate that information, Kathleen. It is I just know, just totally unrelated, in my hometown where I grew up, Sparta, Michigan, is requesting to become a city from village. And they had been dealing with some annexation issues with the township, and the township has had a firm line of preserving its agricultural boundaries. And while the village wanted to expand a little bit for a certain developer. So it's interesting. So I'm just curious what the status was of that. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, of course, you have to worry about water treatment if you're going to have your own water supply. And one of the things you'll notice about Chelsea
Dexter has arsenic contamination in their water.
Yeah, and
And
you're going to
there
have
is
more
arsenic on this site.
and if you're closer to farmland, you're going to have other kind of contaminants get in. And if you go to Chelsea and you go to Dexter, you will notice the taste of or smell of chlorine that you don't have the city, because the city uses oxidation and it only uses chlorine for the last bit of travel time to keep the water fresh. But this is an ongoing issue, not to mention all the costs and the getting rid of lead in the existing water pipes and things like that. Yeah, we are subject to water issues. Anyway, that was my update. Any other questions? Anything I should be covering in the next meeting, that let me know, and I will try to create some stuff.
And when is the next meeting? I missed that part.
I will bring it back up.
Yeah.
The quarterly, June 3rd at 10 a.m. The quarterly.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we may briefly go over some of this stuff for the benefit of the EGLE people that aren't here today, but quarterly meetings tend to go into have more issues come up, because there's usually last minute things from EGLE that can come into play. Jack?
Yes. So Beth, do you have new contact information for the new EPA regional people?
No.
Okay. Georgia, is it possible for us to get that from you? Oh, she might.
Sure. No,
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I can figure out, because some of the folks who were here before mostly were working on other Superfund sites and were assigned to the region as Superfund leads. I'm pretty sure that was the main person who had provided us updates before. So I will see who their replacement is.
Well, the Region 5 new person for Region 5 was up from Ohio, whatever the equivalent DEQ was. But I don't know how far down any of the changes were for in Region 5. That'd be something that we might have some more information on too. Is that right, Georgia?
Yes. I will go ahead and look, and of course some of the information that's publicly available is not up to date. It takes them a second to fix it too. So yep, I will ask. Are you asking also because, notice of the next meeting and trying to get their attendance?
Yeah, we just want to get their input and keep them informed as they work on making this a Superfund site and stuff.
And if they're new to this region, then we should probably, in particular, invite them and inform them of prior participation of regional staff, just so that they feel welcome.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Anything else, anyone? Any Any non-agenda items? Next meeting is June 3rd, as noted, and it'll be a quarterly meeting. I hope that we can keep Jay and EGLE here. I'm anxious to hear what's going on. And with that, that's the end of the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate all the
Good
effort.
night.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Hey,
everyone.
Jenny,
Bye-bye.
Jenny,
Good
stay
night.
on. I want to see some kids.
They are no longer in the house.
Oh,
Can you do that? Just exile your kids?
Oh, here. My husband took them. I think my best guess is they're getting Mother's Day flowers.
Oh,
My best guess is that's where
That's-
they left. I don't know if I can
I'm going to
see.
stop recording.